All right, fuck it. We're doing this. Three, two, one, and we're live, Paul. We're on the sixth episode of the WrestleVLOGS podcast. We're joined as always with the dildo dude himself, El Chazo.
Hey, yo, what up?
And as always, we're here with the mark that gets marked, the host of WrestleVLOGs, the first ever WrestleVLOGs champion, Julio.
Shut up! I am here on WrestleVLOGs. Oh wait, that's the wrong episode.
God damn it.
What's up, guys? How y'all doing?
And
I
yours
was
truly.
about to say, were you gonna do that the whole time?
He should. Now he should.
No, don't.
I'm saving that for the Rob
I'm already
episode.
confused.
And yours truly, Moichzilla. And on today's podcast, we've got a great guest from BE, The Commission, Great Sexy Love. He is Mr. Great Scott.
There we go.
Take it away.
It's I've never done one like on audio version. I should have gone and given it a little bit more juice. But I don't know. It's weird not doing it in front of people.
That's what happens when there's a quarantine. So, Julio, take it away.
All right, guys, how y'all doing? How's everything? How's life?
I'm doing great. I'm always doing great.
All right, Zilla,
Doing all right, pretty well.
Chase.
Just working my ass off since I'm essential and potentially almost getting fucking COVID the other day.
Hell
Well,
yeah.
We'll say that later. Scott, you mentioned you're doing great. That's great to hear. How you've been doing? What have you been doing during this time of quarantine?
Oh man, a lot of naps, a lot more drinking than usual. I'm really not a very big drinker, but I've had access to alcohol lately, and it's just sort of like, the first couple of days I was like, I'm not gonna do this, but then hold on 1 second, give me 2 seconds.
Damn, Paul.
Sorry about that. We got some special guests trying to get on the podcast, but I said no. They got to talk to you all about that. But where was I? Yes, I've been taking a lot of naps. I've been doing more drinking than I planned on doing, because I kind of was like hot on that out of the gate, because I was like, oh, this is only gonna last like a week or so, and then things started getting progressively crazier, and I was just like, I need to calm down on that. I can't be going too wild on the drinking. So, I'm pacing myself. I'll have maybe like a beer or so a day. And yeah, other than that, just I teach also, so I'm still technically doing that online, which is weird because like my content area that I teach for is hard to teach via the internet, but I'm finding a way. So that's pretty much it. And then obviously like I'm training too. I'm doing a lot of like grappling and jiu-jitsu stuff. My buddy Eduardo De La Garza, he's a phenomenal martial artist. He's got starting to have like a little martial arts studio here in San Antonio, and doing well, building up his clientele and stuff like that. So we've been doing a lot of like one-on-one sessions, just crazy stuff. And he's nuts with it. I mean, like, as far as, like, the grappling game goes, there's very little I can do to him. But I almost got him in, like, a beautiful armbar yesterday. It was incredible. I was so close. And then he found a way out. He found the back door. And it made me really sad because I wanted to tap him out very badly. But wound up not happening. But other than that, that's it, man. Just training crazy. Making a lot of bread too. I forgot about that. I'm into making bread now, like actual bread, not money.
Right on. So, so keeping on the topic of crazy matches, crazy fighting. So, we've seen that you've been involved in some pretty fucking brutal matches recently. Just not too long ago, you're in tag teaming with the Remedy against Dimitri and Dirty Andy Dalton. And of course, we've seen you at the Texas Deathmatch tournament. We've seen you do some pretty crazy shit. I just got to ask, were you always a deathmatch guy?
No. The Texas Deathmatch Massacre. That was actually the first. That was the first real death match I'd ever done. Like I'd done street fights and I'd done stuff like that, but never like a full on like, oh, here's a bunch of barbed wire just under the ring or whatever. Do with it as you will, you know. So it was definitely new, but honestly, like it was always something that I wanted to do, you know, since before I even wrestled. Because like when I was like graduating high school, I was wanting to become a wrestler, and one of the guys that I watched the most at that point was like Sabu, old ECW tape. I saw that match, the barbed wire match, Born to Be Wired with him and Terry Funk. I must have seen that match a million times. And I always in my head was like, damn, I want to do that, you know, but the opportunity never really arose. I went a pretty like traditional route through wrestling with my training. I actually got trained at a reputable school by a reputable trainer, Funaki. Shout out Shoichi Funaki. I, you know, trained with him for year and a half, 2 years. Was wrestling like very traditional style matches, you know, one fall, no bullshittery. But yeah, the opportunity arose and the stars aligned, and I hit the ground running with the deathmatch stuff. And you know, I mean, I enjoy both. I enjoy, you know, more traditional matches, and then I enjoy the big death matches as well. The no ring was really crazy because I had no idea how that was going to work out until it was actually happening. So, but like if it's a death match in a ring, that's, you know, it's the same as any other match, just with all kinds of weapons and stuff.
Right on. So, on the topic of your training that you kind of mentioned, we do know that early on in your career that you were formerly known as Scotty Santiago.
Yes.
How did you eventually become, you know, great? How did you eventually find the greatness that made you become Great Scott that we know today?
Well, man, it was a combination of several different things. I mean, for one, I sort of just picked the last name Santiago because I wanted to have like a little bit of anonymity to a degree. And so I picked that, and I was like, yeah, you know, I'll go with that for a little bit. And probably around 2018, I started, maybe even before that. It was probably like mid 2017 that I started getting a little bit tired of that, and I was like, I feel like I've done really all I can with that. It wasn't really true to who I was at a certain point. And so, anyways, at the time I was working with Reality of Wrestling based out of Houston, and I went over there and, you know, gave them all my information or whatever. And I guess the story that I heard was like Booker T was going over the stuff, and he was like, Scott is Santiago. He doesn't look like a Santiago. We're going to call him Great Scott. And so that was sort of what they gave to me when I went over there. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do with that. And for a while, I was like, this is weird. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it work. But then in my head, it just kind of clicked of like, no, wait, I can absolutely make this work. And it's weird. There is actually a completely similar situation I had when I first started out wrestling with this other group that I was in like years and years ago. That's a whole other tangent I can go into here in a second. But it just started like vibing with me, and I was like, Great Scott. Like, I'm trying to be great. I'm trying to better myself. I'm trying to do all these different things, you know. So it just at a certain point in my life, it like clicked, and it was the right thing at the right moment. So.
Right on. See, because I was always under the impression that you got it from Doc Brown and Back to the Future. Not gonna lie.
You know, funny thing, because I mean, obviously everybody says that, and I mean, I'm familiar with the quote, but I've never seen all of Back to the Future in its entirety. So it's not like I'm It's not like I'm a huge Back to the Future fan or something like that. It just fit. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, Back to the Future is okay. It's kind of weird a little bit. Like I watched like maybe half of it, right? Maybe a couple months ago, and I was like, this is kind of a weird movie. Like the dude's like almost having sex with his mom, and like this weird like incest subtext, you know, like. But anyways, it was too late. By that point, I had already started calling myself Great Scott.
Right on. So, on the topic of greatness, so I was first introduced to you in heavy metal wrestling back at one of the Guillotine shows. In fact, it was the 420 show last
Yeah.
last year. At that time, I vividly remember you being managed by Jonathan Joss, aka John fucking Redcorn of King
The
of the
man
Hill fame.
himself. Interesting,
Yeah.
interesting side note. I still have his banner in the trunk of my car. He just had like a banner that had like his face on it and all the rules that he had, and so I still got it. I've let him know. I've been like, hey, Jonathan, like I still got your flyer, or I still got your banner or whatever. But he's never gotten back to me. So I don't know. I guess he's not doing appearances or anything anymore after all that.
Oh man.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, it really does. Because that was, I mean, honestly, that was pretty fucking cool. I dragged my buddy to the show. He's new. I converted him into the cult of being a wrestling fan, and his first ever live wrestling match was that show. And the thing was, he was like, I really don't know. I was like, it's gonna be a death match. He's like, I don't know. And I was like, dude, John Redcorn's gonna be there. He's like, I'm fucking in. So
apparently that did it for a lot of people. Like a lot of people got eyes on the product when they heard that John Redcorn was going to be there. So
right. Now I kind of do want to like go into that partnership with Jonathan Johnson, or lack of a better name, John Redcorn, as we all know him as. How did that come to be? How did that come to be?
So it's actually a really funny story. Around that time, we had Heavy Metal Wrestling had gotten into sort of like a partnership with another local bar called High Tones, and we were doing shows there the first Friday out of every month. In San Antonio, first Friday is kind of like a thing.
Yeah, that's down at
the
go strip.
Out downtown, whatever, the whole deal. And so I was wrestling this guy named Hellspawn. He's a Chilean guy.
Oh yeah, I remember him. He was at one of the shows.
Yes. He was doing a tour of Texas around that time. And so his thing is he spits poisonous mist into people's faces.
Yes, I remember.
So he does that. I'm blinded, and I'm being led to the back. And the venue, it was this bar called High Tones, and it was sort of an outdoor venue. Mm-hmm. And so I'm being led to the back, and I feel this hand on my arm, and I hear this voice, but it's not anybody's voice that I know. And I was like, this is weird, but whatever. Like, somebody just give me a towel so I can get this shit out of my eyes. And when I got it off, there was this guy in front of me, and he introduced himself. He was like, hey, I'm Jonathan Joss. I'm the voice of John Redcorn from King of the Hill and this and that. And just saw you wrestle, and I'd be interested in maybe doing business with you, something like that. And I had met him. I had met him briefly, like maybe, that would have been 2012. He was working for another company called Branded Outlaw Wrestling.
Oh, and, yeah, here in San Antonio.
It was their very first show, and he was there. At the time, he was selling chips, John Redcorn chips, and they like let him sell his chips there. So I met him super briefly before I was like anybody, before I'd even had my first match. But it was funny. Like I think he was just walking around downtown and happened to see there was wrestling and just sort of navigated towards it and was enamored with my performance, my greatness. And, from that point forward, we talked business, and we were able to hammer out a couple dates where he managed me. And thankfully, one of them was the times where I won the bare knuckles title. So that was pretty cool too. That was one of the high points of my career, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, rightfully so, because that's such an accomplishment. Not many people can say, oh yeah, John Redcorn was in my corner while I was champion.
And yeah, who knows what could have been? I mean, if he wouldn't have been in my corner, maybe the stars wouldn't have aligned the way that they did. But he came through. He earned his pay as a manager. He earned his cut. So phenomenal job. A great guy. He's also got a line of spices as well. So I think he's only selling those off of his Facebook. But if any of y'all want to follow him on Facebook, he's on there as Jonathan Joss. I believe he is still selling his spices.
Right. Now, have you ever thought about doing a reunion with Jonathan Joss anytime soon? Because I know y'all kind of stopped, like all of a sudden.
I would love to. I would absolutely love to. Obviously, the whole coronavirus stuff has put a halt onto a lot of different things. That idea has been kicked around a little bit, and I'm still in contact with him. So, I might message him at some point down the line. I think that would definitely be something, because I mean, people love King of the Hill. People love that show. And being managed by like one of the voice actors from it, you don't really realize how many people really love King of the Hill until something like that happens. And I mean, me personally, I love the show as well. John Redcorn's a phenomenal character on it. So I would love to. Let's get wrestling back first. Let's do that first, and then
I'll
try to see about getting Jonathan Joss on there. But I've definitely thought about it. And John, if you're listening to this now, I am more than willing to talk business with you. Holler at your boy, get in those DMs, and we'll make something happen.
For sure. So, on the topic of wrestling, this is a wrestling podcast after all, and like I mentioned earlier, I was first introduced to you at the Guillotine show for out in 420 when you were
High and Dry.
Yes. Like I said, I was first introduced to you when you were Bare Knuckles champion with Jonathan Joss. Now, can you tell me a little bit about your time as the Bare Knuckle champion? Because I was there I won't say I wasn't there when you first got it, but I was there throughout the career. Like I was there at all the Guillotine shows when you dropped it to Ruben Steele at the Deathmatch Massacre. How was your time? Do you feel like you brought a lot of greatness to that title?
I think the title brought a lot of greatness out of me, because up to that point, I had never really had a major title for any company. Like I'd had secondary titles. I'd been a tag champ at a couple places, a few things, but never really like the main title for a company. So that was the first time that had ever happened to me, and I realized, like, really shortly, like, after I had won it, that I was like, man, I can't wrestle in the same style that I've been wrestling. Like, I need to take it to the next level. I need to, tighten my game up in the ring and just, cover all my bases and stuff like that and perform like a champion performs. So, that was the mentality that I went into all of my matches after I won that title. Well, it took, like I said, it took a while to really understand that and be like, oh man, like I'm the champion. I have to perform like a champion. I have to wrestle like a champion. So, but I mean, it was sort of trial and error. There's those first, few weeks, that feeling out period. But probably like a weekend, that probably the next show, whatever the show in May was. Who was? I think I was wrestling Gregory Iron in that one.
Yes, I think
maybe.
Wasn't that one Iron Sharpens Iron? Because I was at that show too.
If it was the one where I was wrestling Greg Iron, then
yeah.
It was Iron Sharpens Iron.
I remember.
What's that?
I think it was Iron Sharpen Iron. I think it was.
Yeah, because I'd had a match with him and I really enjoyed it, and I was like, okay, now that's the kind of match I need to be having as a champion. Because we were doing weekly shows. We had Thunder as well, and I think like the week after I had won it, I had been kind of under the weather, but still wrestled. And I looked back on it, and I was like, man, this wasn't what I needed it to be as a champion, So worked out, ironed out all the kinks, and when I had that match with Greg Iron, I felt way more confident in myself as a champion, and I carried that through. I feel like towards the tail end of me having that title, culminating in the deathmatch tournament, I mean, I think I just went into another gear, especially in that deathmatch tournament. I think that really brought a whole other dimension out of me that I didn't even know was in there. And after that, it sort of opened up a whole other door. I mean, even though I wasn't the champion anymore after that, I had just sort of a completely different view of my skills in the ring and how I, went about using them. And it's been smooth sailing ever since, more or less.
Yeah, for sure. Because me and my friend that I'd always go with, same one I jacked to the 420 show, we were always like butting heads because I was always cheering for you, because how the fuck could you not? And he was always like, nah, he's a bad guy, he's a heel. I'm just gonna fucking boo out of him. So We always kind of butted heads on that, but his doubt you remember this, but we're talking to the deathmatch show, and he always was like, "Man, I used to call you a pussy all the time, but after seeing you in those deathmatches, he's like, I take back all I said," and I was like, "Bitch, you fucking better." But on the topic of the other things, so not only are you a wrestler and a champion, you are also a show host as well for Mat Chats.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So how did you?
What's that?
I would say, so how did you come up with the idea for Mat Chat exactly?
So the original idea for it, because in the early days of Thunder, we really didn't have a lot of people in the talent pool to choose from. Like, none of the wrestlers really knew what we were doing in Texas. They were just like, what is this weekly show? It's whatever. It's this and that. So, we were trying to fill up like, an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of show, but, we'd maybe only have enough for 4 matches, something like that. So, they would just give me a microphone and be like, go out there and just talk shit to the fans. And I would be like, okay. And then eventually I just went up to the management and was like, hey, y'all should just give me my own talk show. So that one, they were like, well, what would you need for that? And I was like, give me a chair, a carpet, and a coffee table. And they got me those 3 things, and it was a hassle for all the secondary staff to get all that shit into the ring every week. But they did it because I demanded that I needed those things to have my own talk show. And that was how Mat Chat started. So
Now,
from there, I mean, y'all were talking about Jonathan Joss. He was on there a couple times.
oh yeah.
We had a hot dog cookout for the 4th of July. That was fun. And man, so many classic moments on that show. So many weird moments on that show too, because sometimes we would just get whoever as a guest, and there were a few weird ones, but
Yeah, for
I was
sure.
always cool, but sometimes the other guest was lame. So,
Yeah, I remember this girl I was talking to at the time. I got her into heavy metal wrestling, and she went to one of the Thunder tapings without me, and she sent me a Snapchat video of some dude. He was cutting a promo on like tables or chairs or some weird shit like that. And I was just like, well, that's kind of just how Mat Chat goes. You just don't know what to expect. But that's what kind of, in my opinion, that's what makes it so, on the top of greatness. It makes it great like that because you don't know what to expect. Unlike other talk shows on certain big wrestling shows, it's kind of the same thing.
Come in. Start with W and end in E. Is that what we're talking about? But yeah, go on.
Yeah, it's kind of predictable. You have the host, you get the wrestler, they talk, someone comes in, they fight. Meanwhile, on Mat Chat, it's like, again, you could have fucking Jonathan Joss on there, or you could have some dude cutting a promo on some random topic, or, you can just have
Jeff Gant doing the Gant rant. That was that was another thing too. So like we had a show within a show. He had a segment inside the show, and it actually got pretty popular. He did a very heartwarming rendition of "My Sacrifice" by Creed. That was beautiful. He has the singing voice of an angel. I don't know if y'all knew that.
Damn, we're gonna have to get him on the show and have him sing for us then. But well, so I've noticed, especially at the heavy metal shows, we've seen a severe lack of Mat Chat recently, which kind of saddens me a little bit. So, do you ever plan on bringing Mat Chat back for the heavy metal wrestling crowd?
God, I've been asked that question so many times. It's weird to do on the monthly shows, but actually after Thunder ended, I still did it a couple times. We had a time for New Texas Pro Wrestling. I did it up in Abilene, and there was another time where we went down to Port Aransas, and we had a little Mat Chat down there in Port Aransas. But I'm thinking about, obviously, like, it's hard to do when you don't have that weekly show. If we do it at a monthly show and people didn't go to Thunder, they'd be like, what the hell is this? But I am thinking about maybe having it now during this quarantine or whatever, and maybe inviting some people in and doing that. But the only thing is, man, and we're on a podcast right now, so that only underlines the sentiment. But there are just so many. God, just give me 2 seconds. God damn, shut the fuck up. Okay, so Matt Chat. Sorry, people. I got too many goddamn people in my fucking domicile right now. But that's a whole other story for a whole other podcast. But my point is, I was thinking of bringing something up as far as with the Matt Chat and revisiting it. But the thing is there's so many podcasts now. We are on a podcast right now, so I feel like that only proves my point. So I don't know, I don't know if I would do it necessarily as a podcast, though. I think I would do it as maybe something on Instagram TV or something like that, and just quick, 4 or 5 minute things with, independent wrestlers or personalities from the scene, something like that. I'm still trying to put the idea together, stuff like that. I've actually got the space for it. It's where I'm sitting right now, which I thought was the quietest part of the house. I was wrong on that. But I'm thinking about maybe getting a green screen back here and, projecting myself talking to people in front of different shit. Maybe the pyramids in the background one day. Maybe the Eiffel Tower the next day, that kind of thing. So it's still, I'm still ironing out the kinks in my head, but potentially something. I don't want to promise anything with the Matt Chat, but maybe I might try and see about revisiting it soon.
Right on.
Now, if you ever brought Matt Chat back, would you ever have Big Bad Bursey Daddy in the house?
Bursey is in the house right now. Bursey is right here. Bursey never leaves. Bursey's always there on my elbow. My bursa sack. I have pretty severe bursitis in my left elbow. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't feel like anything. People are always like, "Oh, it's so messed up," and I'm like, that's just Bursey, baby. It's just along for the ride. So
Bursey, Daddy.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll try and get people to touch it because they're weirded out by it a little bit. But it's just Bursey. I'm not gonna bite you.
We'll touch it.
Okay, yeah. Go at the next show. We'll do a live wrestle vlog, and then I'll chop your asses.
$5 for a Polaroid of with Bursey.
$5 to touch it. $10 to watch me touch it.
Now, me and Julio, we haven't been so fortunate to have seen you many times. We've seen you about 5 times. The first time we saw you was last year in July, which then turned out you told us about the death match in the first death match tournament, which also was the birthplace of Bursey, wasn't it?
No, Bursey. God, I've had Bursey for years, man. We fucking go back like babies and pacifiers, bro. I've had Bursey since first time I noticed it was probably 2014, so probably 6 years. I've been with Bursey longer than I've ever been in a serious relationship. So let that shit sink in.
Hey man, he's the best companion you can have.
Yeah, doesn't give me any shit. Doesn't complain about anything I'm doing. Just just chills.
Right on.
All right, so how Zilla mentioned, we met you first time at I don't remember what the match was. I think it was a triple threat. I don't really recall. But how'd you feel the first time you went to WR, and how'd you feel after the match? How did you feel about the venue, the fans, everything in general?
The first time I went to Wrestling Revolution, I wrestled Johnny Big Hoss and Joey Romero. And I was going into it, and I was like, all right, I've never really wrestled anywhere in the Valley. I've wrestled south of the Valley. I've wrestled in Matamoros. I've wrestled in Reynosa. Those aren't technically the Valley. So I was like, man, I don't think anybody's really going to know who I am down here. I'm just going to go out and, have fun. Fuck it. And it was crazy because, I guess it was y'all that were, sort of, cheering for me when I came out. And I was like, whoa, people down here actually know who I am. So that, made me feel a little bit more confident while I was out there, and I won that match, didn't I?
You did,
Yeah, you did.
Don. Full disclosure, we had no idea who you were, but I think we're like, I don't know who this
I
great
won
Scott
you
is,
over, so
but
that's even better. I won
look-
you over with my entrance.
yeah, it was.
that's a good.
I was like, this is great Scott. He's a new guy. Fuck it. Like, let's cheer the fuck for him because sometimes the WR crowds kind of suck. But you came out, you had a kimono. I can't remember the song that you came out to, but like you dove into the ring. It was crazy, and again, it was like we're like, I don't know who this guy is, but shit, he's got a good entrance and he's a good fucking wrestler. So it was our first introduction to you.
He's a great wrestler.
Great wrestler, and that was our first introduction to you.
Oh shit! I thought y'all knew who I was. So that's even better. That tells me that I did a really great job of captivating y'all and presenting that I am indeed a great wrestler, which I am. But
greatest.
That's the thing. That's one of the things that I do at Wrestling Revolution when I go down there is I use different music every time. So I'm trying to remember what I came out to that time. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember I've come out to like so many different songs down there. I came out to Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. I did that at the hardcore show down there. And then
that's when you wrestled DXC, I believe.
Yes, I did. Busted his head open and got blood all over my shit.
That match was wonderful.
Yeah, that was a wild match, man. Shout out DXC. He's a tough motherfucker. But God, what else? I came out to Return of the Mac at the last Wrestling Revolution show that I was down at, and I've already got my song that I'm gonna come out to the next time I come down there. I'm just waiting on the moment to pull the trigger on it. So once all this stuff clears up, I already have that squared away in my pocket, ready to go.
And you were supposed to, you were booked for the recent hardcore show, right?
I don't know if it was supposed to be hardcore. It was going to be hardcore because like coronavirus was starting to hit and everybody was canceling stuff. It was literally that weekend of like, I think it was like Thursday evening. Okay, we don't know if we're going to do this or not. We're going to sleep on it and see where everybody's at in the morning. Friday morning, yeah, we got to cancel because like the NBA just canceled, So that really sucked. I was looking forward to it.
I think.
What's up?
I think it was like a regular show. I think you were supposed to face Chris Austin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we were gonna have a little rematch. And it was just that was the weekend where everything was shutting down, so wound up not happening. It was really unfortunate because I was looking forward to come down there again. I love coming down to McAllen. I was looking forward to wrestling Chris Austin again. I really enjoyed wrestling him when I was down there. I think he was the second match I had when I went down there. So he's a really good wrestler. Really underrated. He needs to start getting out of McAllen more. He needs to get his name out there.
Definitely does. All right. So how you mentioned you wrestled down in Reynosa and Matamoros. And then I think it was like barely when we started doing WrestleVLOGs, I would announce that we were going to this like lucha show. And you saw the flyer and right there it had this Ronald McDonald character. Yeah. So yeah, the fans that I don't know, this Ronald McDonald name is called Jorobado Ronald. It's kind of like I can't say it in English. I forget words.
The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah, something like that. But it's a Ronald McDonald character. So and then
he doesn't have a hunchback though.
Well,
he does. He does have a Well, he
does.
hunches his back. He hunches his back. Yeah.
It might be a different Ronald though, because the Ronald I wrestled didn't have a hunchback.
I'll find a picture.
Maybe
Keep going.
Anyways, yeah.
Keep going, Julio.
So yeah, what's Jorobado Ronald, and you told us that he wrestled you in Matamoros. So tell us how that match went down and your reaction. You found out you're gonna wrestle this Ron McDonald character.
Oh man, I had no problem wrestling a Ronald McDonald. I wrestled all kinds of weird characters in my day. I've wrestled Donkey from Shrek. That was also on a Lucha show. He's actually a really good wrestler. He was like tying me up. So I've wrestled a lot of licensed, copywritten characters in the past, mostly Lucha shows. So it wasn't really a huge surprise seeing that one of the guys on the six-man team on the other end from me was going to be Ronald McDonald. Went out there, we're wrestling, everything's going as only it can go in that kind of situation, and suddenly, all of a sudden, without any warning whatsoever, Ronald McDonald sticks his thumb up my ass. So definitely wasn't anticipating that. Didn't know it was coming. Stuff like that only happens in Lucha. I've also had my pee-pee grabbed once in a Lucha match a while back. It wasn't against Ronald though. It was against an Exotico.
Yeah, a lot of stupid shit happens. Oh, there's Ronald. There's Ronald in the chat. So yeah, like how you said, Scott, there's a lot of crazy shit that happens on the Lucha show. We actually went to one backyard Lucha show, and the ref just took like a suicide dive. The guy almost I think he hit his head on the bench, if I'm not mistaken. But a lot of crazy shit happens in Lucha.
It does, man. Well, Lucha is crazy. Everything about it. I love it. I love Lucha Libre. I was fortunate to get to go down to Mexico multiple times. I toured with DTU while I was down there briefly for about like 2.5 months. And it's just, everybody, like even American wrestlers, American style wrestlers, they'll be like, oh, I don't like Lucha Libre because like blah, 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 or whatever. It's different. And I'm like, it's really not. Like, it's based around a lot of the same things. And if you see like Lucha mat wrestling, it's very similar to American mat wrestling, It's the same thing. It's the same foundation. They just took it in a different direction with the more like acrobatic type stuff. So, it evolved in a different way, just like Japanese wrestling evolved in a different way. And I think we're more aware of it now because we're, in more of a connected society. So we're able to see video of lucha from Mexico, and even different stuff. Like I'll be seeing, videos of wrestling from like the Congo and stuff like that. And it's like voodoo and stuff like that. And I'm sure some people would be like, oh yeah, that's weird. But I'm sure other people would see that and be like, man, this is incredible. Like, this is my thing. So, yeah, man, fuck yeah. I love lucha.
Yeah, it's a different culture for everybody, different styles, but it might be weird for somebody, but might entertain somebody. Overall, wrestling is wrestling, so that's what we're all here for. So, going back to Mexico, what other places in Mexico have you wrestled in?
So when I was on tour with DTU, we went a bunch of places. Like I was staying in Hidalgo State, just outside of Pachuca. I was like in this small little town. God, I don't even remember the name of it. I'd written down like the names of everywhere that I went to on my old phone, but it cracked and I didn't back it up. So a lot of that stuff's lost to time. But when we were touring, we went to a bunch of different places. Jalapa. We went to Veracruz City and Veracruz State. Guadalajara, same deal. Man, a bunch of places. The one place that I really wanted to wrestle that I wasn't able to was Mexico City, of course. I was really like wanting to go there and wrestle and whatever, have that whole experience. But I wound up wrestling everywhere except Mexico City. So, but hey, whatever, man. Life still goes on. So who knows? Maybe I'll get the chance to wrestle there in Mexico City. Hopefully some point soon. I don't know. Depends on whenever wrestling starts back up. So.
Yeah, we really hope all of this just blanks out and just finishes. And also, I mentioned earlier, and how we were told by Steven Marco yesterday, you were in ROW. Can you tell us a little bit more about the time there in ROW? What were the things that you liked, rivalries, anything in general?
Well, you know, I first off, before I say anything, let me preface it. I love Reality of Wrestling. That was the first company that I went to that had like, other than like being an extra at WWE shows and stuff like that. That was the first company that I went to wrestle at that had like really good production. They were TV minded. You know, and I mean, I don't know if y'all have ever been to one of their shows, but I mean, it's, you know, phenomenal. They've got the venue right there. They've got amazing ring. They've got the set, which is like very impressive. You know, like you'll go to some of these places and it's just a curtain in front of a door, you know, and then you go there and they've got the whole, you know, the whole deal. So it's like a really great product. The wrestlers there are amazing. You know, man, there's so many great talents there. Brian Keith, that's my boy. Clay Roberts, Ryan Davidson, you know, God, the list goes on. So, I mean, going there was almost kind of like a little bit intimidating too, because like you see all these really good wrestlers and you're just like, man, like all these guys are busting their ass. They're all working really, really hard. And I'm just, you know, basically Joe Schmo coming in. Because at that point, like, I wasn't really as, you know, cemented into the scene as I am now, I guess. And, you know, didn't have sort of some of the buzz, I guess, going as I do now. So, you know, and I mean, that sort of affected how things shook out there for me. Like, they didn't really utilize me a whole lot. They utilized me a little bit. I had some good matches. I had a really good match with Sheriff Kiefer Bartek way back when, before he was the sheriff. And I had a match with Jacob Fatu also, who's like, God, he's so good. But, you know, other than that, it was really just kind of like, you know, I would show up. If they needed me, they would use me. Sometimes they would use me, sometimes they wouldn't. There was really no like promise of if I was going to get used or not. And then just gradually things started, you know, popping off for me at heavy metal and, you know, in Austin. And then, you know, after that, McAllen. So it just sort of, you know, I just sort of faded away from there because I was feeling like I wasn't getting used. It was nothing personal or anything like that. So, you know, it wasn't like I left with a bad taste in my mouth or did something to piss somebody off there. It was just, you know, I think we'd reached a point where it was time to go one way and time for them to go another way.
Exactly. So, and also how you mentioned earlier with Funaki, you were one of his first students, if I'm not mistaken.
I was his first American student. So he had trained people in Japan. Hikuto Adaka is probably like his most famous student. Definitely his most famous student from over there. So, but yeah, I was his first American student when he opened the school up here, the Funaki Dojo.
Funaki Dojo. So how was training there, Funaki? How did he teach y'all? Is it one-on-one, or how did everything work out over there?
So originally I was wanting to go to Wrestle Factory, Chikara's Wrestle Factory, and they had put out that they were going to have like an open tryout, and you know, if you showed up and they picked you, you would have your tuition covered. And so I drove all the way up to Easton, Pennsylvania. It was like a two-day drive. I actually lucked out. Like I was gonna sleep in my car, but the woman who worked at the venue that they were gonna be running out of saw that and was like, "Oh, you can just stay with my family." And they like opened their door up to me and took me out to dinner, the whole deal. They were actually amazing, very nice people. And so we did the tryout. It was down to me and this other guy from Minnesota who was like super jacked. They wound up going with him, and but I had like spoken with Mike Quackenbush, and I was like, hey, you know, like I want to pursue this, so you know, like, do you have like an email or something that we can keep in contact with, so maybe I can move up here? And he was like, yeah, gave me his email. We were talking, trading emails back and forth. I was pretty much planning on moving up there inside of, you know, maybe like 2 or 3 months. I was trying to save money and do stuff like that, and got into a pretty severe car accident. I didn't get hurt or anything like that, but my car got totaled. And completely changed my whole plan on how I was going to pursue becoming a wrestler. So I went on Google to try and see if there was a wrestling school closer in my area, and I think that was like a day after Funaki had announced he was going to start training in San Antonio. And got in touch with him, started training January of 2011. And at first, the school was a lot different. It was run out of a local independent company school, River City Wrestling. They were sharing a venue. And so it was me. God, who else was in that initial class? My girlfriend at the time, who's not involved in wrestling anymore. Joey Spector, Raina Pink, who's retired, Rudy Russo, and then I think that was pretty much it. There was occasionally be other people coming in and wrestling and stuff like that for like a night or two, something like that. But it was pretty much us. They wound up kicking Funaki out of the venue over some bullshit reason. I don't remember what it was. It was like... Actually, I don't even think it was an issue they had with Funaki. I think it was an issue that they had with the guy that was managing the school for Funaki. And to be fair, that guy was kind of like a little bit shady. Actually, if you ever talk to Dylan Dunbar about it, we've got a really good impersonation of this guy. So he'd always talk about how great his son Justin was, and like how great he was at football and stuff like that. Anyways, that's a story for another time. So I was without training for a while, because they had kicked us out. I didn't really know anywhere else to train. I didn't even hear about, Texas Wrestling Academy until like long after I graduated. I didn't even know who Rudy Boy was until probably like 2 years into the biz. So yeah, we kind of waited it out. Eventually Funaki got a new venue. And from there, it wasn't one-on-one training because that was when Dylan Dunbar was training. So it was basically, he was starting from day one. I was sort of the senior student, even though I hadn't wrestled a match at that point. So we were kind of like, Funaki was trying to bring him up, but he was also still trying to train me at the same time. So it was weird, but slowly but surely we continued to progress. We got more students, so I was able to sort of play around with different people and learn different skills, stuff like that. And eventually he gave me the okay to start wrestling matches and hit the ground running. And man, it's been no looking back ever since.
Now, is that where you first met Dylan Dunbar?
Yes, that was. We met. Funaki was doing business with a local company here, and I was sort of just tagging along, sort of his understudy, what have you. And he was like, okay, Daniel, we have maybe new student coming in. His name Dylan, and he here tonight, so we're gonna introduce. So Dylan comes up and introduced himself to us, and then his dad was there too, Big Rob. And that was also the first day I got to meet Big Rob as well. And yeah, that was the first time I had ever met him. I don't think I'd ever seen him before or anything like that. So, but pretty shortly after that, we became pretty fast friends. We had a lot in common, pretty similar backgrounds. So just,
you even tagged up with him, didn't you?
We did. Well, that came much later. That was actually his first match. We were a tag team together, but yeah, we tagged a little bit initially when he first got started. But he didn't get Funaki's permission to be in the tag match he was in. That was his technical first match.
Oh shit.
So when Funaki found out about it, he was kind of upset. He was like, "What? Dylan wrestling? No, he not ready yet." So Dylan had to wait on that for another, I think it was another couple months before Funaki finally gave him the seal of approval. So, but yeah, like long after that, we started tagging more seriously. I think that was right before heavy metal started. And then he started transitioning into more of like being a promoter, being a booker, things of that sort. So
yeah, so you've been with Dunbar like through the beginning of heavy metal and all of this, right?
Yeah, before that, technically, like, man, we would have met probably like, that would have probably been maybe like 2012-ish, maybe 2013, somewhere around there, somewhere in that neighborhood. So, but yeah, heavy metal started in, I want to say 2017. Might have been 2018 now that I think about it. I don't know. Like, it's funny how I can remember dates from like a while back, but like ones that are closer up, they all kind of run together.
Scott,
Yeah.
so tell us. Let's go focus more on the GSL. How did you join the party with GSL?
Man, that kind of just happened, honestly. You know, I was doing the Great Scott thing, you know, outside of really anything. Like I said, that kind of just happened. And man, you know, I mean, I sort of saw on the periphery like GSL starting to do their thing. The Great Ones. I think the Great Ones followed me on Twitter one day, and I was like, who the hell are these guys? And looked them up. I was like, the Great Ones? That's my thing. But, you know, like, I started reading their stuff and, like, seeing, I was like, oh, it's a tag team. Okay, that's cool. You know, that's pretty cool. Pretty great. And, you know, Steve DeMarco, who I've known, you know, when I started going out to those reality of wrestling shows, you know, good guy. You know, he was always doing the Sexy Steve thing. And then, you know, Nate and Anthony Andrews, I didn't really know as well, but, you know, they were doing their thing. Everything sort of came together for them. That was around the time where I was starting to do Matt chats, and the Great Ones sort of worked their way over to San Antonio. We got them on Matt chat. They presented me with a kimono, and that was pretty much it from there. I mean, it sort of made perfect sense, really. I'm Great Scott. They're Great Sexy Love. You know, peanut butter and chocolate.
Most definitely. So
peanut butter and jelly also. That's another thing. Peanut butter goes with a lot of stuff.
Peanut butter and fucking whatever you like.
And
now,
don't get too that.
Yeah, you know, people can get weird with that, but we won't talk.
You can't give people that kind of leeway.
Yeah, I mean, we won't talk about, you know, various things you can do with peanut butter, because Lord knows there's a shit ton.
I'll take your word for it.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, lost my train of thought now. So, you've been around the Texas scene. You know, you've been blown up recently. Well, not recently. You've been
not within the
red
last
hot.
Couple weeks.
Yeah, you've been fucking red hot. So, I just kind of want to get to know, has there been a promotion that you haven't worked for yet that you want to?
I think I've worked for just about everybody in Texas. Even Wrestle Circus, weirdly enough. I had a little cup of coffee there for a dark match. God, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of people that I haven't worked for in like some form at some point. God, man. Whatever company that Joe Exotic was doing the commentary for, just to say I worked there, that would be cool. I think that was NWA Texoma, maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I would do that just to say I did it.
Are you a Joe Exotic fanboy?
Joe Exotic fanboy. I wouldn't say a fanboy necessarily. I'm more view his whole thing like looking at a car wreck. You know, it's like one of those things that you just can't look away from.
Right.
You know, watching the documentary, I don't think he deserved to get busted for that. He probably deserved to get busted for some other stuff. But it seemed like they kind of entrapped him into that whole murder for hire thing. So yeah, man. I mean, the real guy in that whole story that I think that got off without anybody really looking into him was the guy that had the whole harem of women.
Doc Annell.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy.
There's gonna be like a season 2 or something of Tiger King where they deep dive into that guy.
Oh, there's got to.
There's something going on over there.
Yeah, because he does some pretty fucked up shit. In some cases, I think he was arguably like more controversial, more worse than Joe Exotic. I mean, the whole sex cult thing for one is,
but
dude, what the
fuck? He slid
fuck?
right under the radar, though. That was his whole thing. And
yeah.
like shit talking Joe Exotic in the thing, and I was like, dude, you are literally the exact same guy, just with chicks instead of guys. You know.
Except, again, worse. It's like, wow,
Yeah,
Joe.
like literally, like he would for sure euthanize the cats, like just shoot them when they were too old to be petted. And it's like, I don't know, man. That was, God, we could just do a whole second episode of me talking about Tiger King, because that
actually
show fucked me up.
Our show with Nasico was our Joe Exotic special, so we might have to do a part 2 with you in the future.
Revisit
of nothing
it.
but Joe Exotic.
Let me binge the series again so I can watch all of it, and then
Yeah.
I'll take some notes.
Yeah, 'cause I literally finished it at like 7:30 before we started the podcast. We do have a segment on the show. Trying to wait for everyone to come back. So we do have a segment on the show. It's called Roast This Pig, where it's 2 parts. So the first part is you're going to have to cut a 60-second promo on whatever topic we choose. So let's see here. Adrian, get the timer ready.
I've got it.
All right, cool. So Great Scott, you're going to have to cut a 60-second promo. Trying to see what's trending on Twitter right now.
Okay.
RuPaul's Drag Race.
RuPaul's Drag Race.
It's
Okay.
number 2 trending on Twitter. So we're going to have you cut a 60-second promo on RuPaul's Drag Race.
Oh God,
Whatever.
y'all giving me something I don't even really know a whole lot about. God, when does the 60 seconds start? Are we already in it?
Yeah, we'll give
No.
you we'll give you time to think about what you want to say, and
RuPaul's Drag
just
Race.
let us know when you're ready.
God, I'm sure there's something I can do with it. Whatever, I'm just gonna freestyle it. We're not preparing for this at all.
All right.
So I'm ready. I'm always
All right.
ready.
All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
There's a little show on, I don't even know what channel. I'm assuming probably like Bravo, something like that. One of those channels that nobody cares about. But it's this show that I've been seeing on the Twitter trending around, this RuPaul's Drag Race. These dragsters racing around all over the place. They're getting all dolled up, all glammed up. And for what? For ratings that are continually going down, for people that are tweeting about it here and there on Twitter. Oh, RuPaul's Drag Race, RuPaul's Drag Race. Well, guess what? I'm on WrestleVLOGS right now, and I'm about to roast the shit out of RuPaul's Drag Race. RuPaul hasn't done a goddamn thing in the professional wrestling business, prancing around in dresses and shit like that. That's all fine and dandy, and congratulations on making money with your little show or whatever, but you've never body slammed nobody. You never pile-driven nobody, RuPaul. RuPaul wants to get into a 16x16, an 18x18, a 20x20. Take your pick, Ru, or Paul, or however you pronounce yourself, or however you
That's
refer to
60
yourself.
seconds.
That's 60 seconds. I'm Great Scott.
Damn, Paul.
Yeah, damn, Paul. Y'all gotta count me down when we're getting close to 60, because I was getting heated.
No,
I don't even know RuPaul when I was getting heated.
I was gonna say fuck the 60 seconds. I was gonna say
RuPaul, more like damn Paul.
There you go. That would have been my closer if y'all would have given me a
Shit.
countdown.
Fuck, no, I was gonna say, fuck the 60 seconds. We should have just let him go.
I know. I was
Ready to keep going. I was
how
gonna
about
keep going
this?
until y'all told me to stop. So,
So
How about
somebody, Effie needs to book RuPaul versus Mr. Great Scott when all
Let's
of this is
fucking
back.
get it. Book it,
Effie.
Effie.
after
Book
this,
it.
I think we could do something. I could
I
carry RuPaul.
Oh hell yeah!
Carry
So,
Damn, Paul.
RuPaul to their grave.
So the second part of the segment. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna introduce it. So I was gonna say on this one though, Scott, we're not gonna have a time limit on it, since obviously we saw you can get pretty fucking
Don't tell
heated.
me that. Don't. I need
you're-
parameters. All right.
Oh,
It's
you're
like,
gonna
I'm just
get-
gonna keep going.
You're gonna keep going whenever you feel like you're done, but like we mentioned, you're now gonna have to cut a promo roasting either one of us or all three of us as a collective. And I just want to put this out there for now. It's called this second part is called Roast as Hosts. And again, like I said,
I like that it rhymes.
You're gonna either roast all three of us as a collective, or you're gonna single one of us out. Don't tell us, but either one of us or all three of us. And I just gotta say this: everyone fucking forgets my name. So it's El Chazo, aka the dildo dude himself. Gotta put myself over. So
the dildo dude.
Yeah, I was the guy that brought out that thumbtack covered dildo at the No Ring Deathmatch.
So that's a key part of your personality now, is that you're a guy with dildos? I can get a lot of mileage out of that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that after.
You're not a cook, are you?
Oh, fuck me, man.
There you go.
Well,
that's why he's got the dildo. Maybe.
Well, you kind of have to have a girlfriend to be a cook, and I don't have one, so...
Oh, you're an incel. Okay. Yeah, I can do a lot with that.
Oh, fuck, I just worked myself. Anyway, Adrian, take it away.
All right, so, 3, 2, 1, go.
So I'm here on the WrestleVLOGs. You know, a vlog is a video log, and there's no video being taken of this WrestleVlog. So I have to question the integrity of naming a show a WrestleVlog, trying to set itself apart and not even having video of what is actually going on. But more to my point, we've got the hosts. They're running around waving dildos all over the place. They're going around letting people chopping them in the chest. Why hasn't Great Scott chopped any of these hosts? Great Scott should chop all three. We should do like a little Three Stooges situation. I'll line all three of you up. I'll chop every single one of you, and maybe we can just measure how big my handprint is on each one. And I think the winner gets a second chop, and then a third chop, and then a fourth chop, because Great Scott don't stop when it comes to the chops. So, WrestleVLOGs and Dildo Guy and Moistzilla, I only know your Instagram handle. I'm sorry, I never know how to pronounce it because it's fucking spelled weird and you need to get a different one. And Julio, who never lets me chop him, he lets everybody else chop him. What, you afraid of my chops now, Julio? You afraid of me chopping you? You should be afraid of me chopping you. You should fear me just like everybody else in this state fears me, because I will make your life a living hell if you ever raise that shirt up. Let me see those man titties and chop you right across the nipple. That's all I got.
Yeah, Paul. I was gonna mention.
Oh, God.
I was gonna mention. You gotta chop me when all of this is over, man. I already missed.
I offered to chop you, and you pushed out. You were like, "No, you can't chop me." And I was like, "What the fuck?" That's like your whole thing, is letting people chop you.
Well, I'll do it. I will do it more frequently now, since I haven't been chopped since a month. But yeah.
Oh man, Scott, I'll let you chop me with the dildo, since I've been established as the dildo dude. I'll let you chop me with the dildo.
I mean, you are now. The more you keep saying it, eventually people will forget about it. But if you keep telling them, like, "Hey, remember that time I had that dildo?" Then yeah, you will be the dildo guy.
One of those
In my
things
mind,
where
you're already the dildo guy now. Now that's all I'm going to be able to think of you as. I'm going to be like,
oh yeah,
that was the guy with the dildo.
It's one of those like living up to the gimmick type deals where I'm just.
You have to carry a dildo with you at all times now, like 24/7.
Funny enough, we've been talking. So, as my dildo knowledge goes, on Amazon for $500 or $600, you can get a 3-foot tall dildo that is like 50 pounds or some shit. It's like the size of a small child. We've been talking about when wrestling comes back to go to that No Ring Deathmatch in Austin with ACW and Heavy Metal and wrap it in barbed wire, but fuck, we don't have $500.
Yeah, if you were gonna spend $500, just give the $500 to the company at that point. Shit, like that would be far more profitable than. Well, I don't know though. I mean, like the visual of a $500 dildo, and knowing that it's a $500 dildo, we would have to like promote it, like $500 dildo on a pole or something. Like there's got to be something we could do with that. But you can't be spending money like that and let it go to waste. Let people know exactly. Put a dollar amount on that dildo and let them know how much that it really cost you. That's what I would say.
We'll make it work.
I just had one question because you mentioned Mexico, but you also wrestled in Puerto Rico, right?
Yes, I did several times actually.
And how did you like? How did that come to be? Like, how did that happen?
Oh man. So I had been contacted. Apparently, like WWC was trying to film a thing here in San Antonio because at the time Alberto Del Rio was working for them, and this was like it was after he had been released from WWE the first time, but before he had gone back the second time, and he was doing WWC, which the only remaining territory from the territory days. So that was really cool from like wrestling history nerd perspective to get to go down there and wrestle for them. But they were gonna film a thing here, and they just needed like warm bodies basically. And I was kind of just in the right place at the right time. They were like, "Hey, we need you to do like this thing for this segment." Basically, I called in, I dropped the dime on this kid that was training here, that was the son of the guy that Alberto was feuding with down there, and the segment I guess got over like gangbusters down there, and they wound up contacting me. God, I think maybe like a month later, and they were like, "All right, we're gonna send you down. You'll be down there, whatever, blah 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 blah. You're gonna wrestle the kid, the son of the guy that Alberto was wrestling." So, which was funny because that guy, I think at that point he had only had maybe like 4 or 5 matches, and he's supposed to be the big hero, local guy, Puerto Rican guy. I was supposed to be like the asshole American. I come down there and people were cheering for me because they hated this kid because they felt like he was, getting opportunities because he was this guy's son. I think, I can't fault the kid because he was maybe like 16, 17 years old, but, didn't really, have very much athleticism to him. So I think that was another thing that like the Puerto Rican fans didn't like. They kind of just wanted to see him get his ass kicked. And that's pretty much what I did. I beat the shit out of that kid for like 15, 20 minutes. And that was my first time in Puerto Rico. It was a blast.
Right. Are Puerto Rican wrestling fans as ruthless as everyone says they are?
I mean, they were. It just wasn't directed at me. They wanted to see that other kid get his ass kicked. So, I mean, you hear all the stories and stuff like that, and going in, I had no idea what I was going to be expecting with that, because I mean, even in Texas, crowds are different. Like, Austin crowd is different from a Dallas crowd, is different from an El Paso crowd, is different from a McAllen crowd. So, that's one of the things that I sort of pride myself on, is being able to like read a room and be like, okay, I'm trying to get this reaction out of these people, so I'm going to do this. And that wound up clicking in Puerto Rico. Like I said, they just really wanted to see this kid get his ass kicked, and I gave them exactly what they wanted. So.
Right on, man. Right on. Now, is there anywhere else you really want to wrestle that you haven't been before?
Because I was trying to answer your question about inside of Texas, and I honestly couldn't think of anywhere in Texas that I haven't wrestled that I would want to wrestle for. I feel like I've wrestled for pretty much everywhere in Texas. God, this really sucks. I hate even bringing it up because it was like gonna happen. Now it's not gonna happen. But over the summer, I was planning on going out to like Ohio and the Missouri area, Midwest, and trying to work my way out there. Like, I've made some contacts out there, and I was pretty much set, like, early June to sort of pack my bags and sort of be making those loops and stuff. Obviously, that wound up falling through. So, I mean, the option's still on the table, and, that's probably going to be the first place that I try and get to after all this is cleared up. But, I don't know, man. Like, it's so weird now because everything's just still up in the air. But I would love to go out to the Midwest, East Coast, West Coast, Canada. Actually, Canada might be an option too. My buddy Tyler's up there, and apparently he's got the hookup up there. So I need to. You just reminded me of that. I need to reach out to that guy. Other than that, like the real place that has sort of always eluded me that I've always wanted to go to is Japan. That's the one thing you talk to pretty much any wrestler. That's where almost all of us want to go, at least just to say we've been there. That would be amazing. I would love going up there. And it's possible, like through Funaki, technically I could go to Kaientai Dojo if I wanted to. The only issue is like, getting the funds to buy a plane ticket, going out there for, a month or two, something like that. So, it would be possible. It's a financial thing at that point. 'Cause it's like, man, if you're not helping me get out there, it's a little bit tougher on the purse strings. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, most definitely, man. I fucking feel that. Pretty good.
Anything you want to mention, Scott?
Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Mr. Great Scott 2U. That's the number 2. I might start making bread as merchandise. So if you come to a show that I'm going to be wrestling on, come hungry, buy yourself a loaf. I make that shit myself. It's delicious. Actually, the last batch I made kind of fucked up. It didn't rise properly. So, it still tastes all right, but just visually it looks weird.
You should start a Patreon where you teach people how to make bread.
Well, I really only know how to make the one loaf. So, like, after I teach you how to do that, it's just going to be, here's me making the same kind of bread again. But, hey, who knows? Maybe people are into that. Man, anything else? Be safe out there. Social distance. Practice your social distancing. And hopefully I'll see you all in May, maybe. May sounds good. Does May sound good to y'all?
Sounds great.
Oh yeah,
that's perfect.
Okay. Well, then I'll see y'all hopefully in May.
Now, a few things. I guess you kind of already did part of one. Another message you want to give out to people that are we're all going through this together. Message to the people and about the virus and stuff like that. Something motivational maybe.
So, one thing I'll say is you can still support wrestling. So, yes, all this shit's going on. Yes, it sucks, but there's wrestlers that have Patreons. There's wrestlers that are making amazing content. There's wrestlers here in this state that are trying to hustle. Jackson Stone's doing, his whole thing. You want to talk about positivity? That's like his whole deal. Mental health and stuff like that. He's big into all that and being an advocate for that kind of stuff. So, find wrestlers that you relate to, find wrestlers that you vibe with, find wrestlers that you are liking what they're putting out, whether it be in the ring, whether it be on social media, whether it be whatever, and support them. Like their stuff, retweet it, share it. If you can, support monetarily, obviously, that's amazing. Buy a shirt, whatever, what have you. But wrestlers are getting hit really hard from this too because, there's a lot of wrestlers that are in the service industry and that's all gone. There's a lot of wrestlers that wrestle professionally and, that's all dried up. There is no wrestling essentially for right now. So, support because when we come back from this, we're going to have to basically be picking up from where we left off and shaking the dust off and stuff like that. So the more you can support wrestlers now, the better it's going to be once wrestling comes back as a whole. As far as like motivation, man, like I've seen so many people losing hope over the course of this and getting discouraged, realizing like, man, this is a huge step back for me, or man, I'm dealing with this, man, I got bills due and I don't know how I'm going to be able to pay them. And I don't have an answer for stuff like that. I mean, I've been very fortunate that, I've been able to be somewhat okay with my money and somewhat financially secure. But, it really only takes one severe illness or one car accident or one this or one that to change things. And I think that's something that we're all realizing, is that, we're all a lot closer to the edge than we realized. But as true as that is, it's also true that we're learning that we need each other to depend on. We need to depend on each other. We need to have each other there to build ourselves up. So just like the three of y'all with this WrestleVLOGs, y'all are creating something. Y'all are creating something, and it's helping wrestlers like me get the word out about myself, promoting myself, do stuff like that. So you guys are providing a service. You guys are helping the scene, even if it's a small way. Even if, sometimes you get discouraged and you're like, oh man, this episode only had, however many, listeners versus, this other one. Whatever, it's an uphill battle. And gradually over time, we're all going to get there. A rising tide raises all ships, and the tide will rise eventually. I promise you that. So just hold on, baby, and we will get to the promised land together.
Hell yeah, man. I'll drink to
Fuck
that.
yeah. Hell
Now,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Is there any anywhere we can support you? Anywhere we could buy merch or anything like that?
No, there is not. Actually, it's I've got merch technically. I just have nowhere that I sell it online. I have enamel pins that I literally only sell to you if you come up to me and ask me, "Hey, do you have the enamel pins on you?" And if I have the enamel pins on me. So you have to catch me at a show to get one of those. I specifically do it like that to see who the real Scotty Maniacs are. If you got one of those, you're pretty hardcore about it. So, but as far as supporting me, like I said, financially, I'm doing okay for myself. The best way to support me is to go buy another good wrestler's shirt, because if you support them, you're supporting wrestling. If you're supporting wrestling, I benefit eventually anyways. Like I said, rising tide raises all ships. But if you really want to support me, follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. Mr. Great Scott to you on all of them. Be a member of the Scotty Posse. Like all my stuff. Share all my stuff. Tell people about Great Scott. Tell them how great I am, damn it. And that's the ultimate way that you can support me.
Fuck yeah.
All right. So to close it off, Scotty, any advice you want to give out to people that are trying to get break into the business, whether it be in the wrestling, referee, manager, anything on the line on there?
So for one, you have to be realistic. Wrestling business is tough. Even on the independent level, things are getting so much more competitive. Things are getting a lot more professionally minded. It's not like, oh, I'm Joe Schmo with a pair of boots, put me on your show. Now it's a lot more of like, okay, you have to be trained by a reputable trainer who's willing to vouch for you. You have to be good. You have to be athletic. And God, it sucks because I say that, and then like I'll see guys in Walmart power bombing each other and getting like 1,000 retweets. So I mean, there's always different avenues and stuff like that. But like I say, it's getting a lot harder to be an in-ring wrestler. Now as far as like being a ref or something like that backstage, pretty much every wrestling company that I've ever been to, they're always looking for production people. If you're into production, anything like that, if you know how to produce videos, you're already way more marketable for any company anywhere you go. And even better if you're an in-ring performer, then that just adds one more thing to you. So try and make yourself multifaceted. Try and make yourself as valuable as possible. That's what I would say if you're trying to get into wrestling. Because if you're just a guy and, oh, it's my dream to wrestle, guess what? That's like every guy ever. What else can you do? Okay, you can wrestle. Can you edit videos? Can you manage a social media account? Can you do this? Can you do that? The more of those things you can say yes to, the more chances you have of getting a foot in the door in places that really matter. I hope that helped.
All right. Hell yeah. So I think that's all we've got for today. Thank you so much, Great Scott, for coming on the show and hanging out, talk, shoot the shit, and thank you.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Y'all take care, and I'll see y'all when I see you.
For sure. Take it easy, man. Be safe
Take
out
care,
there.
man.
All right, guys. So that was our great episode with Mr. Great Scott himself. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We sure as hell did. It was, again, great. As always, you can follow us on social media. You can follow me on Instagram at El Chazo. That is El Chazo with 3 Z's. ELCHAZZZO. On Twitter at El Chazo. That is ELCHAZZO.
You can follow me on Instagram at Moitzilla. That's MoichZiilla. And Instagram at Merchzilla, MERCHZIILLA.
And you can follow me on the Twitter at Julio_VASKES. Also on Instagram, Julio_VASKES2. And definitely follow WrestleVLOGS to keep an update on all who's gonna be coming to the show later on and who's gonna be asking fan questions and all that good stuff. So follow WrestleVLOGS on all social media platforms at WrestleVLOGS, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Also, we're gonna have we already have some people already set up for next episodes. We're gonna have Rob Love, ASF, Bryson Scott. We're gonna have Jeff, GCWA promoter, also the great ones, and Roxy. So stay tuned for all these episodes. Make sure to listen to all the other episodes and also this one. If you're listening, great. That's pretty great. Thank you for the support, guys.